All right, so today we're going to be breaking down our pie around into smaller sections so that we can clean it. I'm going to be breaking down the big one for my students into smaller chunks so that they can actually work on cleaning beef. So this is our eye of round. This is the full eye of round. They're going to only be getting about a 4-inch section. The first thing we're going to do, though, is get out all of that liquid inside of the bag. This is also what they're going to need to do. They're going to have a vacuum sealed bag of meat. So I'm taking that over the trash can and just dumping the liquid out. This is not blood. There contains no red blood cells in it. It is called myoglobin. Myoglobin is what or gets oxygen into the muscles, but the muscles of animals actually contain no blood. It is a very big misconception. So we're going to be cleaning off a bunch of this connective tissue. I will be showing you different types. One of the big things with the eye round is it has a big fat cap that we actually want to keep uh, on it that will help add flavor. So I'm going to cut off this first chunk. That's going to be the one that I clean. And then I'm going to break the rest of this down into sections for my students. Again, I'm giving them just a nice chunk that they have enough that they can practice cleaning, along with enough that they can make a couple steaks out of it. Making sure they're all cut through. This actually is a very nicely marbled eye of round. Typically, they look a lot leaner, but this one does have some fat, intermuscular fat going through it, which is very nice to see. This is a locally sourced cow. It is full Angus. It is also a bigger eye of round than I'm typically used to. I think that the Angus helped with that. But you can see that sort of white area on the top of each one of these. That is your fat cap. And while we're going to trim it, we do not want to cut it completely away. That will render off and give us a lot of really good flavor. All right, so I'm going to work with this small chunk. You can see all of that connective tissue around it, and it doesn't look like the most appetizing steak right now. So we're actually going to cut all of that stuff off. But that is, again, really beautiful marbling from this steak. So again, that's your marbling. Your fat cap is that white strip that runs on the top of it. This last bit only has a little bit of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the tip of my knife to poke through, and I'm just slicing a bunch of the big stuff off immediately just to make it a little bit more workable. But all of that skin that you see, that is all connective tissue. That is all stuff we want to go away. But that's our fat cap. We want to take some of it off. We want to get rid of kind of the more unappealing part, but we do want to leave some of that attached. So as I sort of told my students, that one piece that I just cut off is the fat. You can tell how white it is, and it's actually going to feel a little bit firmer versus all this connective tissue is a little bit more floppy and everything. This is a fillet knife. It's very, very sharp, razor thin. It also flexes quite a bit, which really, really helps out with all this. So notice how I'm just poking my knife in, then I pull away as I kind of just slice this off. Again, we're trying to leave as much meat on as possible. Some of the connective tissue, like this stuff, you can just pull off by hand. But that's the silver skin that I've talked about for with my students. That is the really, really tough stuff. It will not break down and if you try and cook it. So you'll see here, this is some silver skin. I try and pull it. I really can't break it. That's how tough it is. I am literally using all of my strength and I cannot get that to snap. I'll show you real quickly what um, sort of a closer look of it is. Again, I just kind of use that knife. I pull out and then we slice up against that grain. But that is our silver skin. If you look at it, you can see how it's shiny, not matte. That's that gloss that I've talked about. A closer look, that is all tough and you want to make sure all of that is gone versus this is a piece of fat that is fine to stay on if you want it. I cut off that because it was a little bit discolored on one side, but you can see that it kind of holds. It also feels greasy in your hand as it kind of melts in the temperature of your hand. And so you'll be able to feel the difference between these. So I'm going to finish cleaning this up and uh, should be back shortly. That's all of my cleaned up steak. Again, I left a lot of that marbling on tact. You don't go all the way through and get every piece of white out because, and that's my little bit of fat cap that stays, but we don't go all the way through. Otherwise, you're going to leave your meat looking kind of like Swiss cheese. So just clean it up to the best of your ability. Again, like there isn't a lot of red meat in there. I really just took off the connective tissue, and it's just being very careful with that. Now we're going to cut this into about 2 finger lengths thick. So about put 2 fingers down, you can see, and that way all of them are the same thickness. That way, with especially my students, either in a restaurant, you typically do it by weight, just to get them used to kind of cooking at the same time. Thickness will actually be a better determiner of that than necessarily total weight. So they should get between 2 and 3 steaks out of each one of their chunks. Again, they are relatively nice marbled. The one thing I want you to see is that these have really, really thick muscle groups. They are relatively big compared to like a tenderloin that will be a lot smaller. Also, as you bend this, you can tell that it all stays together, which is going to be different than when they come out of our marinade. When they come out of the marinade, you'll see they're a lot looser, and a lot of that connective tissue that holds those muscle groups together have been destroyed. For our marinade, we're actually just going to use pineapple. Pineapple has a lot of an enzyme called bromelain in it. What bromelain does is it actually destroys connective tissue. It helps break down. It's the reason why when you try pineapple, um, it makes your mouth kind of feel raw, things like that. Now we're going to take off the top. We don't need that. That can be thrown away. We're also going to take off the bottom just because of how woody it is. But we are going to keep skin on and everything else. This is just a quick breakdown in this pineapple. Now I'll give my students their own the pineapple puree already made. The reason that they don't have to do it is because we actually can reuse it. You obviously don't want to reuse it for days and days on end, but for a single day, I can let each group have a pineapple for 3 classes, and that will be more than sufficient. Um, you can puree it and freeze it and use it as needed. And again, like pineapple's like $2, it doesn't add too much, especially if you buy an entire uh, pie of round. It's only about $6 a pound. You add one pineapple can marinate the entire thing, so you're adding $2 to that. So you're still well under like a New York strip price or a ribeye price or way under a tenderloin price. But this has been my best way that I found to tenderize an eye of round. They do have really good beefy flavor. The biggest problem again with eye of rounds is just how tough they are. So we're just going to puree this down. If you need to at home, add a little bit of water to it, whatever you really need to, just to get it kind of loose. It just has to be in contact with the beef to get that bromelain in. We're just trying to get that pineapple to catch and get going. Again, my students won't be necessarily doing this, but um, it is good to have the information for if you ever want to do this at home. But you can buy powdered bromelain inside or as a meat tenderizer and stuff. I have found that that actually leaves more of a like almost chemical taste on my meat. There's definitely like an off flavor there versus the pineapple method. I It does not make the meat taste like pineapple. It just makes it tender, especially after you rinse it off. Um, so I prefer this method. It just produces a cleaner meat. There's really no sugars or anything on it. The only issue with this is that you don't always get the best sear on the meat after you do it this way. All right, so we've got our pureed pineapple. Again, nothing too fancy. We're just going to get a pan and we're going to pour all of our pineapple into that pan. You can also do this with canned pineapple chunks, kind of whatever you want to use. Um, the big thing is that we are going to only leave this marinating in the pineapple for 30 to 40 minutes. Any more than that, what actually happens is it almost breaks down that connective tissue too much, and you get like a sawdust flavor out of, or a sawdust texture out of your meat. So it goes almost well past being tender into just fall apart, and it actually almost becomes dry and everything from all of the connective tissue being gone. So we're just going to put it in there, cover it on up, and slather it with our pineapple. And then after about 30 to 40 minutes, we're just going to pull it out and rinse it off very, very well. And you'll see kind of it when we go back to cook our steak, what this will look like in the final video.